大家好，我是 Jenny， 欢迎来到沉思者 J。今天我们要认识的这位大师，他的名字或许你听说过，或许你读过他某一句诗，那句诗在你心里留下一道印，你不知道那道印的来源，但你知道它是真实的。他叫西尔维亚·普拉斯，他是诗人，他是小说家，他是20世纪文学史上最无法被忽视的声音之一。有人说他是天才，有人说他是悲剧，但 Jenny 今天想告诉你，他是一个用最真实的方式活过的人。他把人类内心最黑暗的角落点亮成了文字的火焰。让我们一起走进他的故事。西尔维亚·普拉斯于1932年10月27日出生在美国麻萨诸塞州波士顿。他的父亲奥图·普拉斯是波士顿大学的教授，专攻昆虫学，尤其是蜜蜂研究。这个细节很重要，因为蜜蜂这个意象后来成为普拉斯诗歌中反复出现的符号。他的母亲奥莱利亚是个受过高等教育的女性，在那个年代，这样的母亲并不多见。她对西尔维亚的教育倾注了全部心血，希望女儿成为一个有成就的人。普拉斯从小展现出惊人的语言天赋，8岁就开始写诗，几乎在他学会完整表达自己的同时，他就开始把那些表达写下来。然而，他8岁那年发生了一件改变他一生的事。父亲奥图在他8岁时因糖尿病并发症去世。这个失去，在普拉斯的内心留下了一个从未愈合的洞。他后来在日记里写道，那个洞是真实存在的，不是隐喻，是身体里实际感受到的空缺，失去父亲的伤痛，以及随之而来的对父亲形象的复杂情感，成为普拉斯整个创作生涯中反复处理的主题。这种处理方式后来被文学评论家称为自白派诗歌的核心特征之一。但悲伤并没有压垮他，至少在表面上。普拉斯是一个成绩优异的学生，他在学校屡获嘉奖，奖学金拿了一个又一个。他的知识能量让所有老师印象深刻。1950年，他以优异成绩进入史密斯女子学院。史密斯是美国最顶尖的女子学院之一，普拉斯在那里如鱼得水。他在全国性杂志发表诗作，他获得了无数创作奖项，他的才华受到广泛认可，但同时，他的内心正在进行另一场战争。1953年，普拉斯前往纽约，参加著名文学杂志的实习计划。这段经历后来成为他长篇小说《玻璃罩》的原型。在纽约的那个夏天，他感受到了现代社会对女性的全部期待，既要美丽，又要聪明，既要有成就，又要温柔顺从。这些相互矛盾的要求，像一个罩子一样把他笼罩住。他回到麻萨诸塞之后，陷入了严重的抑郁。那年夏天，他尝试结束自己的生命。幸运的是，他被及时发现。接下来的几个月，他接受了电痉挛治疗和心理治疗。这段痛苦的经历，后来在玻璃罩里被详细而真诚地描绘。1954年，普拉斯重回史密斯完成学业，他的才华丝毫未减，反而更加深沉和通透。1955年，他以最优等成绩毕业，获得富布莱特奖学金，前往英国剑桥大学念研究所。剑桥的天空是灰色的，但普拉斯在那里遇见了他生命中最重要的人。他叫泰德休斯，英国诗人，高大、英俊，充满磁场。他的诗有一种原始的力量，像大地本身说话的声音。两人在一场派对上相遇，初见面就感受到强烈的化学反应。普拉斯在日记里描述那次相遇时用了几乎是戏剧性的语言。他吻了我，他的吻像是一种宣告。他们在相识不到4个月后结婚。1956年6月，在伦敦的一间教堂里，婚后的生活充满创作的激情。两个人都在写作，两个人都在燃烧。他们互相是彼此最严苛的读者，也是最热烈的支持者。1960年，普拉斯的第一本诗集《巨人》出版，评论界反应正面，但普拉斯自己并不满意。他知道他还没有找到真正属于自己的声音，那个声音 即将在他生命的最后几年爆发出来。1960年，他的第一个孩子福瑞达出生。1962年，第二个孩子尼可拉斯出生。成为母亲，让普拉斯的诗歌增添了一个新的维度，那种对生命的强烈责任感，和他内心深处对黑暗的感知，形成了一种奇特而有力的张力。然而，就在他的创作达到顶峰的时候，他的婚姻开始崩裂。1962年，泰德休斯与另一名女性发生了婚外情，那是他们的共同友人阿西亚维尔。普拉斯得知此事，精神受到了巨大的打击。他与泰德分居，独自带着2个年幼的孩子，留在伦敦。那个冬天，是英国几十年来最严寒的冬天，暖气管道冻结，牛奶在门口结冰，孩子们接连生病。就是在这样的环境里，普拉斯在每天凌晨4点到6点，孩子们还在睡眠的时间，以一种近乎疯狂的速度创作。他每天早上起来，在那个短暂的安静时段，写下几首诗，然后照顾孩子，然后继续撑过这一天。那段时期写下的诗，后来结集成诗集艾丽儿出版。那本诗集后来被公认为20世纪英语诗歌最重要的作品之一。艾丽儿里的诗有一种让人窒息的能量，直接、尖锐，毫不掩饰。他写蜜蜂养殖，他写分娩的痛苦，他写与父亲的和解与愤怒，他写女性在社会中的困境与挣扎，他写死亡，但他也写复活。有一首诗叫做《女神》，是艾丽儿的压轴之作。她用第一人称描写一个女人从灰烬中一次又一次复活的过程，那个反复燃烧又反复再生的形象，成为普拉斯最具代表性的诗歌符号。还有一首诗叫做《郁金香》，她在诗里描述自己在医院病床上，看着窗台上的一束郁金香，那些花太红了，太生机勃勃了，以至于让她感到不安，因为她已经习惯了白色的安静。这首诗被文学评论家反复解读，有人说它是关于抑郁的诗，有人说它是关于活下去的冲动，有人说两者都是。普拉斯的诗歌之所以如此有力，正是因为他不选择，他让所有的矛盾同时存在。除了诗歌，普拉斯也写了一部长篇小说，就是我们前面提到的《玻璃罩》。《玻璃罩》于1963年1月出版，在英国以维多利亚·卢卡斯的笔名发表。普拉斯不想让这本书影响他在诗歌界的声名，他认为他太个人，太坦白，太暴露了。小说的主角叫艾斯特·格瑞伍德，一个天才的年轻女性，在外人眼中前途无量，但在内心深处，她感觉自己被一个玻璃罩罩住了。那个玻璃罩隔绝了她与世界的真实接触，让她在里面窒息，而外人完全看不见那个罩子。这个隐喻精准地描述了抑郁症的体验，也精准地描述了那个年代女性的处境。在50年代的美国，一个聪明的女性被同时期待成为好妻子、好母亲、出色的职业女性，这些期待本身就是那个玻璃罩。玻璃罩在美国出版后，迅速成为现代文学的经典之作。几十年来，无数年轻读者在这本书里找到了共鸣，找到了被看见的感觉。然而，就在玻璃罩出版后不到1个月，1963年2月11日，西尔维亚·普拉斯在伦敦的公寓里结束了他30岁的生命。他在孩子们的房间门缝塞了毛巾，让煤气不会飘进去。他最后的动作是保护他的孩子。这个结局让整个文学世界震惊。他走了，但他的文字没有走。事实上，他的文字在他去世之后才真正开始被世界读见。泰德休斯，这个他曾深爱过又深恨过的男人，在他去世后担任了他文学遗产的执行人。他整理、编辑、出版了艾丽儿和其他大量作品。这件事引发了巨大的争议。许多普拉斯的支持者认为，泰德删改了他的作品，改变了他的意图，用他自己的眼光重塑了他的文学形象。这场争议持续了几十年，至今仍未完全平息。但不管如何，普拉斯的声音 穿越了所有这些纷争，清晰地传到了我们这里。Jenny 想在这里暂停一下，思考一件事。我们说普拉斯是自白派诗人，自白派这个词听起来像是一种告解，像是把罪过说出来，但普拉斯的诗不是告解，他不是在请求原谅，他是在宣告，宣告痛苦是真实的，宣告黑暗是真实的，宣告女性的挣扎是真实的，宣告即便在最深的黑暗里，语言也可以成为光。他的诗歌打破了一个沉默，在他之前，诗歌被认为应该是超脱的、高雅的，不应该谈及这么私密的痛苦。普拉斯说，不，最私密的，就是最普遍的，他是对的。几十年后，仍有无数读者，在他的诗里，感觉有人终于说出了他们说不出口的话。普拉斯对后世的影响是深远的，他与同时代的诗人安妮·塞克斯顿一起开创了自白派诗歌的传统，这个传统影响了之后几个世代的诗人。他的玻璃罩，至今仍是关于抑郁和女性认同最重要的文学作品之一。在心理健康议题被广泛讨论的今天，这本书的意义甚至比出版时更大。他的诗集《艾丽儿》被《时代》杂志列入100大英语小说和诗歌选书，他的全部诗作也被收录进各大英语文学选集。1982年，他的诗集作品集获得普利兹诗歌奖，成为第一位在去世后获得此奖的诗人。这个迟来的肯定，说不上圆满，但至少说明了一件事，他的声音最终被听见了。Jenny 想对今天收看这集节目的你说一些话。普拉斯的故事很沉， Jenny 知道，但 Jenny 不想用他的死来定义他。他的死是他故事的一部分，但不是全部。他的全部是那些每天凌晨4点，在孩子睡着之后，在严寒的伦敦坐下来写诗的动作，是那种相信语言可以承载一切真实的信念，是那种即便在最深的痛苦里，仍然不愿意说谎，不愿意假装一切都好的诚实。这种诚实需要巨大的勇气，他有那个勇气。我们从他身上学到的，不是如何面对黑暗，而是如何在黑暗中仍然创作，仍然说真实的话，仍然让语言成为见证。西尔维亚·普拉斯，一个把痛苦炼成语言黄金的诗人，一个用30年的生命，留下了足以燃烧几个世纪的文字。谢谢你今天和 Jenny 一起走进他的世界。如果你喜欢今天的节目，记得订阅沉思者 J， 让我们继续一起探索那些用生命书写的灵魂。我们下次见咯。Hello everyone, I'm Jenny. Welcome to Thinker J. Today, I want to introduce you to someone whose name you may have heard before. Perhaps you have read one of her poems. And perhaps that poem left a mark on you. You might not have known where that mark came from, but you knew it was real. Her name is Sylvia Plath. She was a poet. She was a novelist. She was one of the most impossible to ignore voices in 20th century literary history. Some people call her a genius. Some people call her a tragedy. But today, Jenny wants to tell you something different. She was a person who lived in the most authentic way she knew how. She took the darkest corners of the human interior and set them alight with the fire of language. Let us walk into her story together. Sylvia Plath was born on October 27, 1932, in Boston, Massachusetts. Her father, Otto Plath, was a professor at Boston University. His specialty was entomology. In particular, the study of bees. This detail matters, because the image of bees would go on to appear again and again throughout her poetry. Her mother, Aurelia, was a highly educated woman. For that era, this was not common. Aurelia poured every ounce of her energy into Sylvia's education. She wanted her daughter to become someone remarkable. From a very young age, Plath displayed an astonishing gift for language. She began writing poetry at the age of 8. Almost as soon as she learned to express herself fully, she started writing those expressions down. But when she was 8 years old, something happened that would change her life forever. Her father Otto died from complications of diabetes. That loss left a wound inside Plath that never fully healed. She later wrote in her journals that the wound was real, not a metaphor, an actual physical absence she felt inside her body. The grief of losing her father, and the complicated emotions that followed regarding the figure of the father, became a theme she returned to throughout her entire creative life. This approach to personal pain later became recognized as one of the defining characteristics of what critics call confessional poetry. But grief did not crush her. At least not on the surface. Plath was an exceptional student. She won prizes and scholarships one after another. Her intellectual energy left every teacher she encountered with a lasting impression. In 1950, she entered Smith College on scholarship. Smith was one of the most prestigious all-women colleges in the United States. Plath flourished there. She published poems in national magazines. She won numerous writing awards. Her talent was widely celebrated. But at the same time, another battle was being fought inside her. In 1953, Plath traveled to New York City. She had been selected as a guest editor at a prominent literary magazine. This experience later became the raw material for her novel titled The Bell Jar. During that summer in New York, she felt the full weight of what modern society demanded of women. Be beautiful. Be intelligent. Be accomplished. But also be gentle and yielding. These contradictory expectations wrapped themselves around her like a glass dome. When she returned to Massachusetts, she fell into severe depression. That summer, she attempted to end her life. Fortunately, she was found in time. In the months that followed, she received electroconvulsive therapy and psychological treatment. This painful experience was later depicted with unflinching honesty in The Bell Jar. In 1954, Plath returned to Smith to complete her studies. Her talent had not diminished. If anything, it had grown deeper and more penetrating. In 1955, she graduated summa cum laude. She received a Fulbright scholarship and set off for Newnham College at Cambridge University in England. The Cambridge skies were grey. But it was there that Plath would meet the most important person of her life. His name was Ted Hughes, a British poet. Tall, striking, magnetically compelling. His poetry carried a raw, elemental force. Like the earth itself finding words. The two of them met at a party. The pull between them was immediate and overwhelming. When Plath described their first meeting in her journal, she used language that was almost operatic in its intensity. He kissed her. And the kiss felt like a declaration. They married less than 4 months after meeting. In June of 1956. In a small church in London. Their life together was charged with creative passion. Both of them writing. Both of them burning. They were each other's most ruthless readers. And each other's most ardent supporters. In 1960, Plath published her first collection of poems, titled The Colossus. The critical reception was positive. But Plath herself was not satisfied. She knew she had not yet found her true voice. That voice was about to erupt in the final years of her life. Also in 1960, her first child Frida was born. In 1962, her second child Nicholas arrived. Becoming a mother added an entirely new dimension to her poetry. The fierce sense of responsibility toward living things, and her deep interior awareness of darkness, created a strange and powerful tension in her work. Yet just as her writing was reaching its peak, her marriage began to fracture. In 1962, Ted Hughes became involved with another woman. She was a mutual friend named Asha Wevel. When Plath discovered the affair, the blow to her was immense. She and Ted separated. She remained in London alone with their 2 young children. That winter was one of the coldest England had experienced in decades. The pipes froze. The milk left at the doorstep turned to ice. The children fell ill one after another. It was in this environment that Plath wrote. Every morning between 4 and 6. While the children were still sleeping. She created at a pace that bordered on ferocious. She would wake before dawn. Sit down in that brief quiet window. Write several poems. Then care for her children. Then find a way to survive another day. The poems she wrote during this period were later collected and published under the title Ariel. That book became widely recognized as one of the most important works of English-language poetry in the 20th century. The poems in Ariel have an almost suffocating energy. Direct, razor-sharp, unsparing. She writes about beekeeping. She writes about the pain of childbirth. She writes about reconciliation and rage toward her father. She writes about the struggles of women within a society that constrains them. She writes about death. But she also writes about resurrection. One poem in the collection is titled Lady Lazarus. It is the closing poem of Ariel. Written in the first person, it depicts a woman rising again and again from the ashes. That image of burning and being reborn became the most iconic symbol in all of Plath's poetry. Another poem called Tulips describes a woman lying in a hospital bed, looking at a bunch of red tulips on the windowsill. The flowers are too red, too alive and full of energy. It disturbs her, because she has grown used to the quiet of white. This poem has been interpreted in countless ways by literary critics. Some say it is about depression. Some say it is about the impulse to go on living. Many say it is both. And this is precisely what makes Plath's poetry so powerful. She does not choose between interpretations. She allows all the contradictions to coexist simultaneously. Beyond her poetry, Plath also wrote a novel. The one we mentioned earlier, called The Bell Jar. The Bell Jar was published in January 1963. It appeared in England under the pen name Victoria Lucas. Plath did not want the book to affect her reputation as a poet. She felt it was too personal, too honest, too exposed. The protagonist is a young woman named Esther Greenwood. A gifted woman who appears to have everything ahead of her. But deep inside, she feels trapped beneath a glass bell jar. That jar cuts her off from genuine contact with the world. She suffocates inside it, while no one around her can see the jar at all. This metaphor captures the experience of depression with stunning precision. It also captures the situation of women in that era with equal precision. In 1950s America, an intelligent woman was simultaneously expected to become a devoted wife, a caring mother, and an accomplished professional. These expectations themselves were the bell jar. After its publication in the United States, The Bell Jar quickly became a modern literary classic. Across the decades, countless young readers have found themselves in its pages, found the feeling of being truly seen. Yet, less than a month after The Bell Jar was published, on February 11, 1963, Sylvia Plath died in her London apartment. She was 30 years old. Before she died, she stuffed towels into the gap under the children's bedroom door, to make sure the gas would not reach them. Her final act was one of protection toward her children. This ending sent shockwaves through the literary world. She was gone. But her words were not gone. In fact, her words only truly began to reach the world after her death. Ted Hughes, the man she had once loved so deeply and later came to resent so painfully, served as the executor of her literary estate. He compiled, edited, and published Ariel and a substantial body of other work. This arrangement provoked enormous controversy. Many of Plath's supporters believed Ted had altered her work, changed her intentions, reshaped her literary identity through his own interpretive lens. That controversy lasted for decades. In some ways it has never fully quieted. But regardless, Plath's voice has cut through all of that noise and reached us clearly. Jenny wants to pause here for a moment and think about something. We call Plath a confessional poet. The word confessional sounds like admission of wrongdoing, like speaking out loud about one's sins. But Plath's poems are not confessions in that sense. She is not asking for forgiveness. She is making a declaration that pain is real, that darkness is real, that the struggles of women are real, and that even in the deepest darkness, language can become light. Her poetry broke a silence. Before her, poetry was expected to be elevated, refined, detached from such intimate suffering. Plath said no. What is most personal is also most universal. She was right. Decades later, there are still countless readers who find in her poems the feeling that someone has finally said the thing they could never say for themselves. Plath's influence on the generations that came after her has been profound. Together with her contemporary Anne Sexton, she helped establish the tradition of confessional poetry, a tradition that shaped poets for several generations to come. The Bell Jar remains one of the most important literary works about depression and female identity ever written. In an era when mental health is finally being discussed more openly, the book carries even more meaning than when it was first published. Her collection Ariel was included in Time magazine's selection of 100 essential English-language books. Her complete poems have been anthologized in virtually every major collection of English-language literature. In 1982, her collection titled The Collected Poems was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry. She became the first poet to receive this honor posthumously. That recognition came late. It cannot be called justice exactly, but it confirms at least one thing. Her voice was ultimately heard. Jenny wants to say something directly to you, watching or listening today. Plath's story is a heavy one. Jenny knows that. But Jenny does not want her death to become the defining thing about her. Her death is part of her story. But it is not the whole story. The whole story includes those mornings at 4 in the morning, after the children fell asleep, In a freezing London winter, when she sat down and wrote. It includes the belief that language could hold every truth. It includes the refusal, even in the midst of the deepest pain, to lie, to pretend everything was fine. That kind of honesty requires enormous courage. She had that courage. What we take from her is not a lesson in how to face the dark. It is something else. It is the example of how to keep creating in the dark, to keep speaking truthfully, to keep letting language be a witness to what is real. Sylvia Plath. A poet who forged gold from her own pain. A woman who lived only 30 years. And left behind words that will burn for centuries. Thank you for walking into her world with Jenny today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to Thinker J, so we can keep exploring the souls who wrote with their lives. See you next time.